Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on our, let's get to the topic, implementing Zero Trust model. So just a little bit of background about us, the speakers. We're from the internal organization of Microsoft. We're the ones actually deploying, running the project of how we're doing Zero Trust within Microsoft. So we're not the product side, but we can represent some of those answers if you have questions about products, but we're just a reminder, we're not the product team. We're the ones that implementing everything internally in the company. So I'm one of the managers in the information security organization. Have a couple of responsibilities. One of them is think about new security strategy and go implement it, which gets us here to Zero Trust. Up here on stage with me is Darshana, who is our program manager for managing all the Zero Trust components, and she can share with you the fun and joy that is to orchestrate and manage 15 work streams. We'll get into that a little bit later. You can see she's really happy to talk about that. And then we've got Carmichael up here, who's our very much a resident subject matter expert or architect on the Zero Trust topic. Zero Trust includes a lot of moving parts, and so we've got Carmichael 100% dedicated to figure out and sort out some of the architectural and technical components that we have to make work to have Zero Trust successful in our environment. And so Carmichael will be talking about some of those kind of architecture model and kind of high level, and we can go into more details with you guys if there's questions. But that's that's kind of how we have it set up. Also, maybe it's forewarning or foreshadowing. We're structuring this session a little bit different than I guess most that you've been in. So yeah, we have slides, but we really want to try to make this more interactive, and so we'll either succeed or fail on this. I don't know. So that's why there's three of us up here. We've got some pre-seeded questions that we hear a lot from customers about Zero Trust, but then we also want to give you guys the opportunity to ask us questions, and so we're trying to allocate about 25 minutes at the end here for open discussion and questions. And then so before we get started, just curious, how many of you are doing something related to Zero Trust or what you believe is your definition of Zero Trust?
Oh, not allowed.
Oh, good. So about a quarter. Great.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good to hear. So it'd be interesting also to know if our definition, our approach kind of resonates with you, or you think we're just completely bat crazy and doing something different, right? We've been on the journey for Zero Trust, I guess, kind of really picked up for us about 6 months ago. We have a lot of executive support for it, kind of all the way top from the upper levels of the company all the way down. There's a lot of support for it, and the really fundamental belief is, hey, look, security models changed. We can't do security the way we used to, and there's been a lot of data points along the way that have proven that and really resonated that message up to our executives. And so there's a lot of, again, a lot of support for our initiative. Not sure how that works for your organization, but that's one of the things that I'm grateful for in our work here at Zero Trust. Even though it's a journey, and it'll probably be 3 to 5 years before we kind of get to the end. We definitely have a lot of executive support for doing this, and so that's one of the, I guess, the blessings that we have on it. The downside on that is you get a lot of exposure and you get a lot of expectations along the way, so a lot of interest and a lot of attention. So get just a little bit of setup. Also, the Zero Trust has been, in industry terms, Zero Trust networking for about 10 years or more. And the other thing that's interesting, you walk around vendor floors at RSA here, other places. Not everybody, but many organizations or many vendors have different definition of what Zero Trust is. Right? Some believe it's, hey, let's route all traffic to some sort of central proxy brain that does, authentication and makes it a seamless connection back to your environment. Some think about it, just the network piece, and that's all we're going to deal with. We're just going to figure out how we add more security to networking components so that when users authenticate to the network, they have to be, more validation there. So obviously the slide up on the screen here is we took a broader approach. We looked at the research out there from Gartner and Forrester, and we also considered, another large tech company that's been very big advocate for something similar called, they call it BeyondCorp, but it's very similar to the Zero Trust model that we've taken. Right, but we looked out at all those components, and we kind of came up with our own definition. And our belief is we needed to move away from kind of implying that devices were trusted, even though we managed the devices, and even though we had users with, that we make sure they had passwords, and we tried to make sure the passwords were good quality. And though we did that, we realized, hey, we need to take that a step further. The adversaries are so much more advanced and so much craftier these days that we need to kind of step up the game, both on authentication and then also on the management and health side. So we came up with this definition, after looking at the industry data. And if you've read any of this stuff on Forrester, like Forrester's definition isn't all that different, and neither is, like I said, neither is the Beyond Corp approach from Google, right? It all centers around the, hey, let's not imply that we trust devices and users anymore. Let's make sure they go through a pretty rigorous step of validation. And the more that we can put that validation into real time and build it as part of that access exchange, that authentication channel, the better off we are, right? So that's been our approach, and also resonates with those others that I mentioned. And so a lot of this is, well, I guess there's a good part that's technology. You have to build the infrastructure that's going to do this checking to say, hey, device, validate, tell me that you're healthy, right? And you also have to do make sure that that exchange can also validate that identity is healthy or meets your expectation in your policy, right? But there's a lot of just process that has to go on also here, and Darshana will share some of that joy that she gets to deal with. And one of the big components for us is just on process and approach is on the devices that are attached to our network. And if you were in the earlier 20-minute session, I mentioned this, right? Like Microsoft's been around for a while. We've had a network that's grown organically. We have a lot of devices on the network, in excess of 1 million. And depending if you throw in the network components and IoT stuff there, it gets much bigger. And you don't just change that environment overnight, right? And so as part of our zero trust strategy, we said, look, we've really got to shrink our footprint of what we consider our corporate network. We need to shrink that to be much more manageable, like make it smaller so we can manage it. We can have visibility to everything that's on it, and we know the state of those things. And we also jettison all those things that are legacy, that are IoT. Let's put the IoT stuff on a different segment. So there's a big portion of the work that we do here that is just segmenting off those different environments. And that tends to be not fancy, not going to get a whole lot of fanfare, but it's just a slog, and we're just running through that. So sorry to if you guys thought it was going to be glamorous. That part is definitely not glamorous and involves a lot of coordination with our network team, and it just comes down to hard work, design, like inventorying all the stuff that's out there, and then planning the migration, right? That's just have to put that rigor in. So that's a big portion of and maybe it's one of the base components or foundational components that we have for the zero trust part is shrink that environment down so we can get much better clarity on it. As part of that, we're also moving users to the internet. Our belief is, hey, let's get users off the internet, off the corporate net, get them onto internet, and then our corporate network, again, smaller. Users on the internet should be able to access everything they need to. And there was initially a debate about, hey, we're putting users on the internet. Aren't they going to be attacked more? Aren't they at greater risk? Like, our users live on the internet 50% of the time anyway. And so if they're not protected, well, we're doing something wrong. So we've kind of quickly came to that conclusion that, hey, that we should embrace this fact that users should be on the internet and be completely functional. So that's been our approach. Your risk appetite may differ on that, and you may think, hey, that's crazy. There's no way in hell we're going to do that. But again, mileage may vary depending on what your risk is and what your approach wants to be. But that's been that's our belief, and it's panning out pretty well for us at this point in time. And then to make all this work, we have to have good telemetry to get visibility to, hey, what are those users out there? Who is managed? What are the devices that are left that we have to go deal with? What are the access methods? Are the users having a good experience? When they fall out of policy, right? How fast did they get remediated? Do they go into limbo and get into a lost state? That's all this telemetry that we need to gather and make sure we have. I would say we're not perfect in this by any means, but we're getting visibility to it, and we're learning as we go on. So that's my setup, and then I'm going to hand it over to Darshana, who can talk to you about our approach with our scenarios and our process.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about my life last 6 months, right? So the Zero Trust project or the program was handed over, and as any program manager, you want to start with what are the core scenarios you want to implement for this program. And the team came up with this 4 scenarios, which I have on the screen here. And if you look at each of the scenarios, they are super simple. We have a goal of making sure we have a strong identity, we are verifying the device health, and we are ensuring or making sure the access we provide is least privileged as part of the Zero Trust program. So if we just consider the goal, we translated that goal into these 4 scenarios. And the first scenario, if I want to make sure only healthy device is connecting to my corporate assets, I want to make sure there is a capability which is existing for the employees to enroll their devices into a device management system. So we started working on that. We already had some solutions. That's a different story. But we are looking at how can we optimize that to be there where we want to be. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario we have is, again, once we go about talking, saying, hey, you know, if you want to access anything on Microsoft side, we will require you to enroll your devices into our device management system. And that solution is not going to work with a couple of our employees because they do not want to enroll their personal devices into the device management system for all the valid reasons. And then we also have a huge partner or vendor employees who come and help us with our day-to-day business. So we want to look for a solution where we have a capability or an alternate solution where we are providing them a way to access our corporate resources. So that's scenario 2. Scenario 3 is more around user experience. Yes, we are talking about Zero Trust from security aspect, but we are also looking at the user experience side of it because, as Brian said, one of the goals we have as part of Zero Trust is we want to move our employees off the CorpNet, and we want to give internet as their primary network option. So once internet is the primary network option, how are they going to find the stuff they need? Like, typically, like, employees are used to accessing the resources through CorpNet. They have some set of portals through which they go and find their information. So how can I make all that available on internet? So that's the third scenario. And fourth scenario is more for the security team. Again, Zero Trust is a journey. It's going to evolve. And we start with one policy today. We are going to increase the policies as we move on. So do we have that set of capability for the security team to evolve and add more policies? So these were the 4 core scenarios we started with. And I'm going to move on to the next slide. So in the very first slide, when Brian explained, we have identified the 4 components of Zero Trust. First is identity. Like, we want strong identity. So what are we doing for the identity component of Zero Trust? First of all, we want to make sure there are no passwords. So we started with our journey of eliminating the passwords, and we used our own product, Windows Hello, for that. And then as part of the strong identity, we want to enforce MFA, multi-factor authentication everywhere. So that is what we are doing for the identity. Now coming to the device, for the device health verification, we have 2-step process. First, we require all the devices to be modern managed. And second, once the devices are enrolled into our modern management system, we push some set of policies on those devices and check if those devices are compliant with the policies which we are pushing. And that is how we validate the device health. And the third one is around the access. So access, until now, our employees, as we said, are used to accessing the resources through the corporate network. So we want to move them off and have internet as the primary network. So that's the first step we are doing. And the second one is around the least privilege access model. That's the biggest gap today. Like today, the way things have been working, once you get access to CorpNet, you pretty much like have access to most of the Microsoft information. So we want to shrink that down and keep it to the things which are only absolutely required for your day-to-day activities. So that's something which we are doing on the access component of the Zero Trust. And services. This is interesting, and here this is where we want to be a thought leader. First of all, if you look at the communication channel, you have a user, and the user is trying to access an application, data, and we call that as a service. So if we want to implement a Zero Trust access model, we want the service to do the checks which we want. That is, verifying the strong identity, verifying the device health. So it becomes really important that all the services inside Microsoft are evaluating that and only providing access if those requirements are met. So that's what we are enforcing. And the last bullet here is requiring an applications and services to provide health certificate. Well, in the true state of Zero Trust, what we are doing today is we are doing all the verifications from the user side. So we are verifying user's strong identity. We are verifying user's device health. We are verifying should the user have the right level of permissions, and so on. But nobody is really verifying the service side of the world. What if a service is compromised, right? So we are having this blind trust on the service, and we are just letting the users access that service. So in the true state of Zero Trust, we want service at some point in time to come and provide the health certification saying, hey, I'm healthy, let's talk. So that is where we want to be. And so this is what we are doing for individual components of the Zero Trust model. And once we identified that, you start planning, right? And so we came up with this set of phases where we have this pre-Zero Trust era where we had blind trust on everything, not really verifying before providing access. So then for each of the components which I described in the previous slide, we identified the set of activities we need to do and started putting them in phases. And one thing I want to call out here, even though we have this as kind of one after the other, but we are kind of doing a bunch of stuff in parallel and kind of going with the quick wins. So we have kind of almost done with the verify identity phase, and actually we have a slide coming up where we are talking about how far along we are in the journey of Zero Trust. So we are doing verify identity, verify device, verify access, and verify service. Pretty much what I just talked about. So we just laid it out in the form of phases, and this all has a detailed project plan, and we have a set of work streams which we identified. So we have scenarios. We know what we want to do. Then what the team did was we translated that into requirements and started looking at, do we have any existing work streams or programs already working on that? And then if there were, we kind of looked at their scope, redefined their scopes. And for the areas where we had gaps, we kind of introduced that as a new work stream. So today, as of today, I am managing 15 work streams under the Zero Trust. We call it epic because it's so huge, and it's not going to happen like tomorrow. It's going to be a journey, but it's fun. I should say that. So as you see, we have the goals here. We want to verify identity, verify device health. We want to remove corporate access. We want to provide alternate access options. This is where we brought in the solution virtualization, because we want to provide our employees with WVD capability through which they can access corporate resources from an unmanaged device. And then user experience, we are really focusing a lot on that. Access verified, we are working on the least privilege access model. Services verified is future scope. We have some ideas on how we want to implement that, but we are working with our product group counterparts to bring it to reality. So there's some work happening. And then bunch of work is also, when you're talking about Zero Trust, it is going to impact almost every employee of Microsoft. So a project which is this hugely scoped, we really need to focus a lot on communication. So like bunch of my day goes with my communications counterpart, where we talk about how do we want to bring our employees along in the journey of Zero Trust, how do we explain these concepts, and so on. And then telemetry. Telemetry becomes the most critical thing, because when you're planning the rollouts and deployments, you really need to know your environments very well. Like, how many devices are out there? What applications are existing? What are users trying to access? Should the users have access to what they need to? So once you have the telemetry in front of you, you will be able to plan your deployments and plan your goals really well. So I would really focus a lot on telemetry. And then we also do, like, we try to use our first-party products wherever applicable. But again, the fact is, we do not have solutions for what we want to achieve. So we also look at what does the industry has to offer from outside Microsoft, and if we can leverage any capabilities to fix the gaps we have today. So we also do kind of that analysis. And then vNext, we know it's a journey, but we have some areas where we want to focus on, and the team is constantly evaluating what should be our next go-to as part of the whole Zero Trust journey. With that, I'll hand it over to Carmichael. He's going to talk through the details of the implementation.
Yeah, but by the way, 6 months ago, she was not calling this fun, I guarantee you.
Yeah. I had to convince her it was worthwhile to do.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly. I'm not going to go super deep into this. I think most folks are probably familiar with Intune and Azure Active Directory and all the things that we're using today. And as Darshana said, we're trying to start with first party. And when we did our evaluation with our friends down the I-5 corridor, we were really kind of looking at what they were using and how they were doing it. And we wanted to know how we can do that with our first party tools, and definitely found gaps in where we're at. So it's really awesome to be sort of both a customer and an employee of Microsoft, because we can take those gaps and work with our product teams on them. So this slide really, you probably see it in like the Intune or the device management series that they talk about. And really what I want to get to on this one is more that circle, because really where this all falls into is the conditional access pieces, right? Where how do I know that that device is trusted and healthy? Because I've got some Intune policies on there. I'm using Azure Active Directory conditional access, and I'm actually monitoring that. But then I'm also looking at the identity of the user as well through, what are we calling it nowadays, advanced threat analytics and some of those things that we're doing with identity. We can use ATP in the background to actually look for anomalies and things that are happening on the client and maybe block those through conditional access. And the key for us, we have like 160,000 iOS and Android devices. We've got some number of Mac devices, and of course Windows in the millions of devices across both server and everything else. We have to be able to do this on all those platforms. So as of today, on all of our non-Windows systems, we actually are enforcing conditional access on all of those devices. We're working on our Windows story, but we wanted to start with the non-Windows because we had a really good story with Azure, with Active Directory on-prem and managing those through like imaging and things like that. So being able to get that, and then what happens in devices that we can't work on, like Linux devices, for example? We have to have some capabilities for like virtualization. Maybe I give them a Windows Virtual Desktop type environment where they can access what they need to, or maybe there's some sort of virtualized gateway that we can give them access back into the systems that they need to go to. And I love my favorite question is, why can't they use the subsystem for Windows? They don't. And I think just to kind of bring the networking aspect back into Zero Trust, Brian touched a little bit on this at both his earlier session and earlier today. The way that we're really looking at this is in these sort of three swim lanes at the top there, right? So by default, you're an unmanaged device. You may have just gotten a device for Christmas, you're bringing in a new Surface Book that you just got, or you've got your new MacBook, because we have a bunch of folks that are developing for Mac, so they're on Macs. So you have to get into the network somehow to get managed, right? So we put them onto the unmanaged network. That'll be default for us. And then once you've made the decision to be managed, you can go to this managed internet. Now again, it is an internet connection, so we're just pumping them right out to the internet so they can get what they need to. So we have to have some sort of relief valve in the meantime before we get to this full internet space. So we are having them come back in through VPN. And what that helps with for us is it helps get the telemetry of what they still have to get access to inside Microsoft so that we can go try to burn down those elements and figure out how do we get them back outside, right? So what are they still working on? Are they developing? Is their code still internal? You know, what are the different things that they're trying to do inside and make those migrations? And then there will be a segment of things that were going to be in that managed corp. So we still have that corporate Wi-Fi, that corporate network, the internal stuff. You'll have IoT devices, conference room devices. Some data will still reside inside the network itself, but we want to limit then now the access to that. So maybe you have to come from what's called the Privileged Access Workstation. Internally, we call it the Secure Access Workstation, or SAW. So maybe you have to have a SAW, which is a completely isolated device, whitelist everything, no admin, no access to too much of anything. So that is our sort of ultimate zero trust device, and then you'll get access into that environment. And then we have the special segments that you'll see there too, which maybe we need an IoT segment. IoT is a big thing for us now. We're seeing a lot more attacks in that space as they're becoming more prevalent. So we want to be able to carve off, maybe put our printers and our conference rooms and all those other things into their own segments to sort of further isolate or sort of micro-segment the network across the different boundaries to make sure that we don't have all these devices talking to each other. And then within those boundaries, maybe we do things like client isolation and things like that too. So pretty big strategy on that. So the major phases of the zero trust progress, we kind of talked about these a little bit. SAW enforcement already, the migration from AD to AAD. So with your on-prem identities, you can do zero trust, you can do conditional access, but you can't do a lot of things we want to do in the cloud with like Office 365 and different cloud capabilities with some of the SaaS providers that we have, third party or whatever they are, because we want to be able to get that modern identity. We want to be able to use Windows Hello and all those things. So that was a really big piece for us to get through. The 2FA we talked about, and 98% of our accounts are all enforcing 2FA now, which is pretty awesome. And that's either through the Authenticator app or Windows Hello, things like that. The other big thing to highlight on here is so we talked about the critical assets, and we talked about trying to figure out telemetry is really the key here, right? We need to be able to understand what are the assets we have, who are the users we have, where are those devices, what are the applications? That's the big, by the way, the hardest thing we've been doing for 6 months is figuring out how many applications we have and who's using them. We don't know. We just don't have that visibility. We can say, oh, we know who's logging into Office. We can see the OAuth logins. We can see what devices they're coming from. But we have somewhere north of 1,200 line of business applications internally developed. We have so many other sort of shadow IT apps and things like that. So trying to figure out all of that stuff. So having that telemetry, trying to figure out where all that stuff is.
1,200 is the official number. I think 400,000 is the number that's defined.
400,000.
Azure Active Directory.
Exactly.
So we've got a little bit of work cut out.
Yeah, well, there's all, right. The Hello World apps. How many of those do we have? Want to talk about that one?
Sure. Yeah. So we'll we often hear, okay, what's your recommendation for those that are getting started in this area? So we'll touch on this, and then we've got some. I guess we'll turn it over to you if you have questions. If not, we have our own questions that we can ask ourselves. So you heard about the telemetry, right? This all comes down to like any good project. Like, what's your goals? What's the risk? If it's a security initiative that you're thinking about here, which most people are, like it's what do you want to get out of the zero trust approach, right? What's your principles, and how are you going to actually go implement those? And really being clear on those principles makes a big difference down the road. Like I can't tell you how many times we've got into we've wandered into dark paths, and we're like, okay, why are we doing this again? And we come back to it doesn't meet our objective or not. I mean, you could argue that there's so much that could fall into the zero trust bucket if you're not careful, and so you have to just be really mindful of the scope. Definitely our kind of major foundation is, as you heard, is definitely identity, right? We started with that. Identity proofing, we made sure we were confident and trusted that approach. We do a lot of in-person proofing. And then definitely getting the onboard to Azure Active Directory, right? That's where all the conditional access magic happens, and also we want to step it up wherever we can. And you heard the 98% on multi-factor, right? So we have high confidence in the identity of our users and when they authenticate. Surface counts is a whole other section, right? And that's one of the ones that we're like, hey, not in scope for this initiative, but we know we need to go deal with making sure service accounts have strong identities, strong authentication, and also bound, right, to as much as we can bind them to the destinations where they're being used, right? But we treat that as a separate initiative, not in our user zero trust model here. And then for conditional access enforcement, like we need if you go to the organization and say, hey, we're gonna do this shift. We're gonna require all devices are managed, and you guys, all your devices need to attest some level of health, right? And everyone will say, yeah, that's great in practice, like sounds good, but how do you actually get users to adopt it? Like, what's your forcing function there? And for us, it was like, pick the most used apps, like the ones that are most used and also most critical, and make sure those apps do the enforcement for you, right? Because if everybody needs to get access to email, and you say, well, you can't access email unless you're enrolled in the right management and you're doing the right policy attestation, well, then guess what? Everybody falls into coming up with lining up and getting their devices managed. It becomes a very strong forcing function. And then the other parts about the policies, right? I mentioned this in the earlier session. This idea of we're just going to enforce device health in some bar, you can't turn that on all of a sudden. Like, you actually have to make sure your environment is meeting a large majority of those devices meet that policy before you flip the switch. Because if you flip the switch and say, I'm going to deny everybody that doesn't meet encryption, but you haven't verified that encryption is 95+% out there, you're just going to result in denial of service for a lot of those devices, right? So you have to be thoughtful about when you throw the switch, and also what components you're going to do, right? What security components you want to enforce. So you have to plan that out and be thoughtful about it. And then we talked about network connectivity. For us, right, it's no easy solution for that. That's a lot of process and some custom tooling that we've had to build for it. So want to give you the opportunity to ask us questions. We get a lot of questions from, there's mics, by the way. So if we could ask you to go to the mics. Yeah, and if not, we have our own
If you're scared of the mics, just raise your hand, but
yeah.
You got
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your CI/CD pipelines, because they are highly privileged processes that deploy from the dev network to production, basically. Have you applied zero trust principles there as well? When you check code into the Git repo, and once the agent is running, it's a highly privileged process where you can deploy stuff into production. So how do you look on that area?
So Darshan touched a little bit on the fact that we're looking at the application space right now. We're focusing more on the devices and users right now. That is something absolutely with the pipelines that we want to make sure that we're looking at, because to your point, right? I mean, whether you're doing in Git, we now have GitHub, and we love GitHub, right? And but how do we know that application itself is healthy? That they're following the right SDL processes? We have our own internal assurance team that's doing a lot of that. We don't really get the telemetry and feedback from those systems. How do we do that? And maybe we're working with some of the different teams across the product space to try to figure out if there's a way to do that. Sort of, don't quote me on any of this stuff, but say like maybe use a secure score type thing. Like if your score is above a bar, maybe you're secure. If your score is below a bar, maybe you're not, right? So if you're using like Azure Secure Score or Office Secure Score, maybe you use something like that. But I think there's different. You think about when you're downloading an app on your mobile phone, how do you trust that app, right? Do you? We all download a lot of apps on our phones, right? So similar concept. So how do we really ensure that even not just the application is running, but that the apps that are on those devices too are healthy?
But also somewhat related to that question, right, was for our Azure subscriptions, we do require Azure subscriptions we have a separate identity for admins. So we require that they use that, and we also require that they use our secure admin workstation. So, and those are our conditional access enforced policies that we're putting in place.
So I think you were next.
Sure. Do you have any comments on what the impact has been in terms of a process on your help desk tickets? Do you notice a spike in help desk tickets, but in the longer term, all of a sudden, you're eliminating some of the problems and the help desk tickets are going down, or any notice whatsoever?
Yeah, I can take that question.
Go ahead.
So first of all, we have started looking at that because, again, as I said, if we have to bring our employees on board, we really need to sell this, right? So we looked at the productivity for the employees and also what is in it for the organization. So one of the examples is with the elimination of passwords, we are seeing a reduction of 28,000 help desk calls annually. And one of the other things which we want to do is at some point in time, we want to remove VPN so that employees use internet. So today, there are so many, like approximately 30,000 calls annually which go to our help desk people for VPN connectivity issues. So we will also see that going down. And the other thing, for the employees, we are also looking at the data of what are the benefits of enrolling into the device management system. With Microsoft managing the devices, we are trying to collect information around, is your boot time reducing, your devices are going to be up to date, which means your family is going to be secure if you're using your personal device to access your emails and so on. So we are collecting that telemetry, and we do not have telemetry for everything, to be very honest, but for the major goals, we are working with the teams to identify what was before and how the situation will be going forward.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'll just mention too is we have a team that actually works on sentiment analysis as well, across all the things, not just what we're doing with Zero Trust, but all of our Office deployments, client deployments, Windows 10, things like that. So we do quite a bit of that. We use internal social networking to figure out, if we see like maybe a spike and maybe one or two people have said something, but what they've said is really relevant. So maybe we need to sort of slow down what we're doing and look at some of those pipelines too. So
I just want to give a little more context to Darshana's answer. So on the Hello ticket volume decrease, that's about a 20% reduction, just so you understand overall the amount of decrease that we've seen with the use of Hello. And then the other main source for help desk tickets for us is related to VPN. And so, again, our hope is that as we go and eliminate VPN, we eliminate that whole class of help desk calls.
So let's come over here.
So I have a question around, think Zero Trust, and I think of Microsoft information protection, right? Or information protection in general. So identity being a foundational element to protect our information and protect our perimeters, right? So are you doing anything on the identity side where you identify sensitive roles in your organization, and how do you do that, and how do you also keep good track of your third-party identities that you allow into your environment?
Yeah, so we actually have you guys mind if I take that?
Go ahead.
We have a pretty robust DLP program that manages a lot of our information protection stuff. We are using Azure Information Protection and Microsoft Information Protection across the environment. We do target specific roles. So like Satya and his executives have a special classification, so anything they write or transmit has its own classification. We can use that classification to create some policies and rules around how that data gets sent around and how it's used. The information protection isn't really a focus for what we're doing with Zero Trust, but using, to your point, using those models and that thing, we can actually do that. The 6 or 7 people I think we have now on the DLP team, they actually work with other groups around. So maybe there's a code word for a new product or a new service that we're building. Maybe that code word gets tagged with just a finite set of people, and only those people can access whatever that data is, whether it's a document, a PowerPoint, or an email, or whatnot. So we do have a lot of those rules that do get applied here, not necessarily at the conditional access level yet, but those rules do get applied through the DLP stuff that we're doing. So
He was next.
For all your on-prem legacy apps, what's your DNS strategy for publishing those to the internet? Are you going to support split DNS, or are you going to use that as a migration path and move to a new domain space, or can you elaborate more?
I can start, and then you can, you can use that.
I want to hear his answer.
I can do the phone a friend thing. Yes. So we have, as part of this, we'll get the users to the internet and then watch what they're coming back and connecting to. Right, we've identified the apps and services that we want to, that we know the users still want to get to. And so we have a couple of different options for getting those applications internet exposed. One is that the application team just moves the application to an Azure, either PaaS or IaaS solution. That's maybe unlikely given that it hasn't moved already, because 98% of our stuff is already migrated over to cloud. So that's one option if they have that in their plans. The other one is, well, we can proxy them out. We have Azure App Proxy that we've used on a limited basis. Probably not our highly desired approach, but it is an approach that we would consider. And then the other one is we believe one of our relief valves is Windows virtualization services, right, where we'd publish a virtual application, just the app, not give the whole desktop, but publish that via our virtualized services and get that exposed to the internet so users could connect that way.
And we have with that virtualization, it's not just maybe say like Windows Virtual Desktop, but we also use Power Apps for some of the things that we're doing. So maybe some of the internal HR components are through like that type of virtualization as well. But DNS is actually, we don't have a really great answer at the moment. We are working through kind of what that solution is. The first thing we need to do is sort of build down and get the telemetry on what is being used. That's the hardest issue we have. We had this, from the LOB type perspective, we have this really like long tail of tech debt of only issuing A records for everything, which you can't really do from the internet, right? So we're trying to work through what that strategy is. We don't have a much better answer than what Brian already gave, so, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious, knowing how integral Azure AD has been as you're going through this approach. You had it briefly mentioned on the last slide. How are you leveraging Azure Autopilot? Is it just for new device registration, or what are you doing internally in the program to kind of leverage some of the capabilities it has for bringing in new machines or maybe unknown machines into the Azure AD world?
Yeah, no, sorry.
I can answer and then Carmichael can chime in. So, so we have a work stream called Modern Management, and our ultimate goal is we move all the devices onto Azure AD and manage it through Intune. So for the current, we are leveraging the Autopilot program for all the new devices. So any new devices which Microsoft is procuring, Windows devices, we are making sure that is AADG and Intune. And we just started that last month, the program started. And we want to wait and watch for next couple of months. And then after that, the team is already planning for strategy on how will we default it to AADG and Intune for NFNR or something around that?
Yeah, I think for Autopilot, one of the big risks that we have in our environment is supply chain, right? So Autopilot, our hope is Autopilot will help maybe mitigate that a little bit. Brian sort of touched on this loosely. One of the benefits and sort of blessings and curses of, as I mentioned earlier, about being both a customer of Microsoft but an employee of Microsoft is we can go to the product teams and say, hey, we have some issues with what we're trying to get done. And one of the reasons why we are where we are with Autopilot is because we just had some blockers that we wanted to do, and we wanted to focus on some of the other platforms that we could actually get those things rolled out. So we do have a big strategy for Autopilot. As Darshana said, we're just getting started on that.
So you were talking about strong identity as one of the core pillars for Zero Trust. Windows Hello for Business makes a lot of sense for Windows. What's your plan for, or what did you guys do for Mac devices like WebAuthn or smart cards?
Yes, no. Right now, from a login perspective, getting into the Macs, it's still local admin. That is one of the things we do at Microsoft. We have everybody as an admin on their boxes today. Hopefully we can change that in the future. We are looking at some of the alternatives. So LinkedIn, while it is a part of Microsoft, it sort of sits on its own, and they are one of the larger Mac shops in the world. So they are working on some strategies, working through some. I think they're using the Jamf connector right now. We're looking at that, trying to figure out if that will work for our users as well. But we just wanted to get the management out there and get the CA working for the applications to get the devices managed, and that'll be sort of a next step for us is to take a look at those things too.
Yeah. So. And there's also phone authenticator.
And phone authenticator, right. So once you're on the machine and you're authenticating to your apps and things like that, we have the authenticator app that's doing the MFA connector for you. So yeah.
We've got 2 minutes left. I just want to summarize this, and then if people have questions, we'll hang around outside. Just want to make sure we end on time. So just a few thoughts is, we're happy to take feedback and connect to people that are also on the Zero Trust journey. It's so much fun that we just want to do it together. So, if you have an interest in staying in touch with us, here's our contact information, how you can reach us. Also, we published a summary white paper. It's similar to the content we've shared here. Always happy to take feedback on that and understand if there's additional information that you, the customers, would like to hear from us and what we're doing. We're happy to share that as well, and also happy to take feedback. And then you'll see us around in the booth areas. We're core services engineering for Microsoft. That's basically the IT organization. And if you want us to stop by and chat with us about how we do things internally in the company, we're happy to do that as well. And then evaluations, if you could do evaluations, thank you.